Good morning, good evening, or good night, based on when you've decided to tune in. My name is Hugh Recaps, and this is Combat Chat Podcast. It's been a busy week. We've got heaps to talk about, so we're going to go the full 5 rounds today. Muay Thai League is the talk of the town for Australian Muay Thai. Heaps to get into for those matchups, as well as some of the big conversation points coming out of the event. Khunsueklek reigns supreme, regaining his Rajadamnern Stadium Championship in an absolute masterclass. We have the first ever foreign Channel 7 champion, and this weekend we've got an absolute banger one championship card from Lumpinee Stadium, headlined by Superbon versus Jo Nattuwat. But before we get into all of it, you may be listening and not subscribed. Whether you are tuning in through one of the audio podcast platforms or watching me on YouTube, a really easy way to support myself and make sure you never miss a show is to hit follow, subscribe, and all the usual stuff like share. If you've got time, drop me a 5-star review. That would be awesome. Thank you very much once again for listening, and let's get into it. So what I wanted to get into first for this week was the results of Saturday night's Muay Thai League show from Queensland back home in Australia. This, talking about Australian events has become quite interesting for me now, not being in Australia, because it's been really interesting to see how closely followed Australian promotions are by people who are based in Thailand, including the Thais. There was a lot of talk about the matchups in this one, especially, of course, because there was a couple of Thai fighters coming over. There was a lot of interest, and I really think Muay Thai League is sort of the newest major player in Australia's Muay Thai promotions. We're really lucky in Australia to have tons and tons of Muay Thai promotions, but probably a smaller number of really genuinely international caliber ones that are putting on really upscale productions and getting the attention of the wider kind of global Muay Thai media. Muay Thai League's doing so many good things. There was kind of a Road to One qualifier earlier in the year. They've hosted multiple world title fights, getting a lot of attention and traction. And I wanted to split my review, my recap of Muay Thai League into 2 halves, just to make sure I can kind of cover everything. For round 1 today, we're just going to talk about matchups, what happened, my kind of thoughts from watching. And then I think round 2, I've had a lot of kind of messages and discussions coming out of Muay Thai League that I thought would be worth kind of giving some light to and shedding some perspective on. So let's get stuck into kind of talking about, I guess, first of all, before we even get to matchups, sort of the whole event. I've worked some Muay Thai League shows in a commentary capacity. I've flown up from Sydney to go and watch them because they've put on some really, really good lineups. I really like what Muay Thai League does with the all-female, a league of their own cards. I think that's a really good way to foster the development of female Muay Thai in Australia. There's just a lot of really forward-thinking moves from Muay Thai League. And I'd have to say, both from watching it on the live stream and from being a part of the production, it's really, really, really one of the best pure productions in Australian Muay Thai. I've been to all the kind of major shows, and for a very long time, Rebellion really stood in a league of its own in terms of production. And I would definitely say Muay Thai League is the only show close to Rebellion's level of just sheer professionalism. That's in the quality of the live stream. There's some really, really good attention to detail in how the shows are presented that I really like. You can see this from just kind of the way, the event begins with a really cool sort of, I guess, piece to camera from the commentators. The storytelling is excellent. That's just for me watching it on the live stream. And then when I've been involved and I get a look at the program, the timing is super, super good. The show they're planned out really well, run to time excellently, which is a pretty common problem for fight promotions. And the team also do a very good job. I've been at a couple of the events and I've also seen how much better they've gotten over the course of doing it, which is awesome to see. yeah, just a really excellent, in terms of pure production value, one of the very best in Australia, absolutely, and a really an enjoyable watch through the live stream, an enjoyable show to be there and be a part of. They build atmosphere really well. Yeah, I just really like what Muay Thai League have been doing in Australia the last couple of years. I hope production of that quality becomes a little bit more of a minimum standard to uphold, maybe not a minimum standard, but I would really like to see, I think for a long time, some of the longer running shows can get a little bit complacent about actually putting on a high quality event, or they rely on the idea that, our matchups are really good, so we don't have to worry about production value, but it all kind of ties into creating that big show feel. And I know all the fighters love fighting on Muay Thai League for those reasons. They kind of get that superstar treatment, and it's a much better crowd experience too. I know as a fighter, when you are, you're one of your best ways to make money, of course, is to sell tickets. You need something that people want to come to, and that if you bring people, they want to come back and bring friends. And I definitely think Muay Thai League is that also a very professional product that potential sponsors can get behind. So cannot fault Muay Thai League for pure production value. I think it's excellent. Naki and Benji have done such a good job. And I really like speaking to Nakia about her sort of approach to promoting fights, because she's really clued in, has a great mind for it. And this is definitely, I think Australian Muay Thai is lucky that she's got involved in putting on a show, because she brings a very unique frame of mind and a very unique attitude to doing it. So yeah, they're killing it. Can't remember what event numbers were, sorry, but not a long time on the scene and really doing a great job up there in Queensland. So excellent event from a production standpoint. Also really like some of the kind of out of the box ways that they are promoting their fighters. I think that's great. Kind of create that little bit of celebrity feeling for their show's regulars. You'll always see when you watch the live stream, doing interviews of other fighters, who are in the crowd, creating that element of prestige. And they do those fun little vignettes in between fights with some of their regular fighters, the who can build the tallest tower thing. Just like a fun way to see fighters in a slightly different light. Their media work for the last few shows has been excellent. I know my pal Sean did some video work for Charlie Bubb before his world title fight. And just really excellent kind of, as I said earlier, storytelling from Muay Thai League. And that's what sort of builds interest in fights. Like, everyone shows up to see fights, but it's the stories that make you a bit more personally invested. So I've really enjoyed all of that. I think in a lot of ways a step forward for Australian Muay Thai promotions, and excited to see what they can do from here. But let's get stuck into the matchups. I think I will probably just focus on the top three, kind of the main ones, or we'll be here all day. Lucy Deadman, Australia's newest world champion. She's been a regular on the show and a good example of Muay Thai League kind of building a star. Lucy's in quite a tricky spot within Australia. She's definitely risen to the top of her weight class, or really the weight class and the weight class above. She's very difficult to find regular matchups, but 2 victories over Gabrielle de Ramos, stopped Caitlin Vance. Like, these are the top girls. She's really proven to be a cut above the weight within Australia. So in that sense, a world title fight makes sense, or an international opportunity perhaps. Fought Petsupa from Thailand. I had seen Petsupa in the lead up, and I think in a lot of ways this is more or less, I probably expected Lucy to just be a bit too strong. I doubted Petsupa could match her for physicality, and that's kind of what it looked like to me. Petsupa gave some moments that I think will serve as a good learning point for Lucy. It gave her some things to work with, like was controlling the clinch quite well early. But yeah, Lucy's proven her last few fights especially to be a big kicker, have a lot of power. I think initially in that third round it was inside leg kicks that were dropping Petsupa. Yeah, just really couldn't keep up with the kick power, didn't want it anymore, and went down. So Lucy leaves with the green and gold, the WBC world title. I'm very interested to see what happens next for Lucy. I think now she is the world champion, but I think just based on, point in career and who she's been fighting and things, this is really the opener for her to get up to that elite international level. The Rajadamnern minimum weight world title is being contested in the next couple of weeks. I think Saya Ito, who's in that fight, is one of the biggest international names at this lighter weight. So there are options. It can be difficult to match at this size, especially within Australia, but there's opportunity for Lucy to go overseas. She seems quite content to be fighting on Muay Thai League outside of her K1 fight in Japan. So I'm interested to see what the direction is, if it's to continue to bring fighters to Australia for her to fight on her show, or if she's going to chase some of these fights down overseas. Because, you know, as we know in the wider global Muay Thai scene, the WBC world title matters. It's something that gets looked at. So, yeah, really could open the door to some big fights. And, yeah, I'm very interested as a fan to see what comes next. Okay, this, in terms of pure matchmaking, this is a fight for me. I just think when I saw it announced, I thought it was really exciting. It was pretty much guaranteed excitement. Just really high quality matchmaking, played out as we hoped it would. Albert Tuua versus Rodlek. There's things to talk about that I'm going to save for round two. I'm just going to go through this as a result. Albert got the split points win over Rodlek. Really cool fight. I think it was cool to see. It was cool to see Rodlek back, cool to see Rodlek fighting in Australia. He's been based at Payak Muay Thai Gym in Sydney, in Homebush. When he first arrived on Australian shores, there was a lot of discussion. Will he fight? Who would make sense for him to fight? That kind of thing. And this is about as good an announcement as you can hope for. Albert has proven on the domestic level very, very ready for an international test, and Rodlek, a few years away from the ring now, a very tough comeback for him. I think it just made sense in terms of timing of career. It's the emerging superstar versus the aging legend. A good test for Albert, and that's what it proved to be. Rodlek threw a beautiful short right hand in the first round that sent Albert to the canvas. Albert bounced right back up, got back in the fight, had some very strong moments through the middle part of the fight. And I love the way it really made Rodlek dig deep to try to come and kind of snatch that win back in the late fourth and the fifth. Rodlek just blood pouring out of his face. It was like that scene in The Simpsons where Lenny's got the coin lodged in his head, if anyone's seen that, just spurting. I loved it. I like to see a guy of Rodlek's level fight when he's really got to get pushed, because that's where you see the best of someone's style come out. And it's good to see Albert after so many dominant performances. He ticks some boxes here by having to get up off the canvas, having to rally back, and just an awesome fight. Unfortunately, a little bit of discussion about some scoring and stuff that maybe detracted from the fact that it was such a great fight. It was awesome. Maybe we could even see a rematch at some stage. Great fight. Albert proves once again to be, regardless of what happened with scoring, whichever way this went, I think Albert showed he's a star on the rise in Australia. Rodlek gave a good account of himself. Just fantastic fight. Highlight, worth the price of admission as far as stream's concerned. I think everyone saw a real fight of the year contender in that one. Which brings us to the main event. And once again, I think a little bit of context around the fight that's probably worth discussing, but we'll talk about the fight. Brandon Spain versus Chalumpon, that most know as Ning, who is quite well known. A lot of people have trained with Ning. He's been working as a trainer at Revolution Muay Thai. He was actually, I trained with him a little bit earlier in the year. Great guy. Brandon Spain, one of the names in this weight class. And again, one of the stars built by Muay Thai League. This was another one that I just kind of think the writing was sort of on the wall. Like you can always see surprises. You can never count out old veterans. Chalumpon was a very, very accomplished fighter in his day. Was ranked at the old Lumpinee Stadium at 112 pounds. But that was some time ago now. And I suppose sort of the angle on this one from the guys at the press conference was old star versus young star. I think that probably suited Albert and Rodlek a little better. But Brandon Spain, of course, does his job again, stakes his claim as the top name in what's become quite a busy division at super featherweight at 59 kilos. So a bit we'll get into in round number 2, but another very strong first round stoppage performance for Brandon Spain. Just kind of came out, as he does, all guns blazing, ready to go elbow for elbow with Chalumpon, cut him bad, dropped him shortly after, and a short night of work for Brandon Spain. So 3 pretty impactful fights that there's a lot of talking points coming out of for Muay Thai League, at an excellent show. Really looking forward to seeing what comes next. I like a lot of what Muay Thai League are doing, as I said, not just in the promotion that they run, but in a lot of the work done in the background to kind of create an engine for talent, which I think is really proven to be the way forward if a show wants to be one of the top events in Australia, much like Rebellion does Roots, and also is involved with Muay Thai Victoria, the amateur scene. Naki's been working really, really hard to get like a more streamlined amateur system working in Queensland. And I only think that's going to build the show from strength to strength moving forward. So yeah, excellent event. If you haven't caught it, livecombatsports.com.au, you can catch the replay. Like I said, worth it just to watch Albert versus Rodlek. Excellent show. And we'll get into a little bit of kind of the talking points in the next round. To be honest, I haven't really been sure how to approach kind of some of the talking points coming out of Muay Thai League. I'm going to breeze through a couple of things, but, from watching the event and kind of getting involved in some of the discussion on social media, I've been really surprised, I guess, by what was kind of coming back from supporters of the show. Like I said, I gave a really good account of how I feel about Muay Thai League in round number 1. I love it. I think it's one of the most forward-thinking, best produced shows in Australia. And as I do, I had opinions on some decisions and things like that. And I got messages in response. I made a couple of pretty, public comments about the scoring in Rodlek versus Albert Tuua. And I got these long messages getting on the defensive about how good the atmosphere at the show was and what an incredible vibe and how good the fight was. And I just I found it really confusing because I'm not trying to take away from any of that. I'm not attacking the event. I'm not attacking it's just, it's strange to me. I don't want to come across, I don't know. I think we have to be able to acknowledge the good and the bad in an event to have a proper and meaningful discussion and to drive the sport forward. Like, if the show being incredible from a production and audience standpoint means you just get like you're just not able to speak about anything that was potentially negative about it, it just creates a really strange precedent in terms of, what you can get a pass for. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. So just thinking out loud here, I didn't really note take too much to structure this. The biggest one was the Rodlek versus Albert decision, and I wanted to touch upon it because it's probably the most important thing to cover. Always, anytime there's a big high action fight, you're going to get disagreements about scoring and officiating, and especially when shows are in Queensland. And I do actually have a healthy and growing non-Australian audience. We won't get into it, but there's one state in Australia that commonly, does some questionable things in terms of judging and officiating. And it's honestly kind of like, I don't want to talk about it. It's overdone and it's tired and I'm just bored of it. I don't think this was actually that kind of situation. And that's sort of what I was touching on earlier in the round. You criticize the decision and you kind of just get called a hater and get it's almost like words are being put in your mouth for what you're actually criticizing. So get into it. I will be clear. I felt, based on my understanding of Thai boxing scoring, that Rodlek was the winner of this fight. However, that's not especially relevant because it was a very close fight. I'd be willing to say it was not a robbery either way. I can see a scorecard, a justifiable scorecard that makes Albert the winner of this fight. And that's why I wasn't judging the fight. That's how it went. And I don't know, I suppose it just comes back to this idea. We have to be able to look at these things in a slightly more nuanced way, because criticizing how a fight was judged is about much more than whether or not the right person won. And this was definitely one of those situations where, yep, you can make an argument that Albert won the fight. And I've had some really interesting messages from people saying things like, look, I thought Rodlek won at first watch and I watched it back and actually the the judging was correct, which is really important. There's lots of, you have to be careful before you start speaking about a decision, and really you have to go and score the fight. This is something that I talk about all the time. Don't tell me you disagreed with a decision if you can't show me what you thought round by round to give me some justification, because you very well may watch it through that lens and change your mind, because the way you view a fight changes a lot when you actually get some experience judging, which most people who criticize decisions don't have. So have a play around with just jotting down your thoughts around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, add up the scores. And then you might also, whether or not you change your mind, you might have a little bit more patience for someone who scored it the other way. You might see it was a little bit closer than it appeared. The problem here, though, was not which way the score went as much as it was the actual numbers. And that's really important, because I often am watching a show and maybe a fight goes the right way, but you listen to the way it was scored, the actual numbers, and you're kind of like, hang on, that's really strange. Or it's a split decision. 2 of the judges got it right and 1 of the judges was scoring the opposite. These are things we have to pay attention to, because just because it goes the right way in this instance does not mean we can ignore kind of egregious errors in not just the interpretation of the fight, but the actual approach to scoring Muay Thai. The problem with this, and the reason that I feel some of the post-fight discussion has maybe detracted from how excellent the fight was because one of the judges scored it 50-47 in favour of Albert. And I just, look, if you are a really well-educated Muay Thai judge and you can see how it went this way and you can explain it to me, fantastic. All of the education I've received, all the experience, which is not a ton of experience, but all the experience I have judging Muay Thai, I cannot see how you could possibly go that way. That's like, you might as well have had your chair facing the other way from the ring. And there's lots of different things about some situations regarding individual judges and things like that. Not thinking about that, not reading into it any further than we have to hear that score. And rather than trying to defend that the show was great and the fight was awesome and this and that, we have to acknowledge that that person really badly screwed up. Really, really badly screwed up to the point where they probably shouldn't be. I'll just say probably shouldn't be judging professional Muay Thai fights, because that's far too high a level fight to be judged by someone who will interpret it in that way. And like, that's not just a blind criticism. It's a note that we should be trying to consistently develop in our officials. And this is why I got such a weird feeling about getting these messages saying that, people were attacking the show and stuff like that. We're not attacking the show. Shows actually don't have anything to, and it's a common thing that people do wrong, is kind of let poor judging reflect an event or a promotion. Is that they're pretty separate entities. You kind of just have to work with the judges that you have. It's not a criticism of the show and what was an awesome matchup. It's a criticism of a judge and a call out that we need to hold judges accountable and potentially further educate. So, yeah, I just think I don't want to that's why I split this into 2 rounds, because the fight was so good. And when we're talking about fights of the year, it's going to be on the short list. It was excellent and create some really exciting future opportunities for Albert Tuua. But we still have to say, okay, we've got to take a look at that scorecard and think about why someone could come out with a score like that, because it's just wacky. It's wacky. I just think you don't, anyway, that's sort of my main point. I don't want to detract from how good the fight was and how good the show was, but we need accountability for judges. And I think people can get too defensive when they take that as an attack. I know Queensland Muay Thai has got better in the last couple of years. I know the minds behind Muay Thai League are really pushing, even outside of the realm of an actual promotion, to make the whole scene better. I'm not trying to take away from that. I'm just calling it how I see it. That was not, it just wasn't on in terms of the numbers on that decision. But I don't want to talk about it too much more. That's just my thoughts. I've got really nothing else to say about that. So What else came out of this event that we didn't talk about there? Look, I got a few messages and most of them I don't really want, or a couple of questions and most that are probably just better off not talking about. I think it's probably worth touching on, I did get asked to discuss kind of the state of the super featherweight division after sort of Brandon Spain's sort of statement performance and some of the things he had to say. I'm just going to speak personally on this. I'm starting to find it a bit boring. It's like there was definitely a time when it was like, okay, cool, we've got 3 or 4 really top level guys. Of course, being Brandon Spain, Josh McCulloch, Ibrahim Abisale, and after his performance against Ibrahim, I'm definitely going to put James Kostick in that bracket too. He's a little bit more of an up-and-comer, a little bit less developed than the other guys, but has proven he belongs there. But there's a point where you've got a lot of interest, and then the more these guys don't fight each other, kind of just the more boring it gets. And what I'm kind of just struggling with is they're all elite fighters, and they're like, what I'm starting to lose patience for is the way one of them wins a fight and says, whatever it is, I'm the king of the weight class, I'm the best, I'm number one, but then there is no movement from anyone to actually get them in the ring together. And then I was so excited the other week to see an announcement for Ibrahim Abisale versus Josh McCulloch, because it felt like we were starting to get away from this. And then that got cancelled, I'm sure, I'm actually not sure why, but for good reason. And then we just stay here. I don't know what to say other than there is no use campaigning for who is the best. Either figure it out or don't, because the divisions move. You know, Ibrahim's got Rajadamnern locked in for December following his win on Rebellion. Josh McCulloch now got a very, very hard fight against a truly international level opponent on 1774. Brandon, I'm not sure what's next for him, but he seems to continue fighting on Muay Thai League. And I don't know, there's talk about I'm contracted to this promotion and no, I'm looking overseas. Look, if you're not going to fight, that's fine, but the interest goes. And it's not that interesting to continue to listen to, I'm the best, no, I'm the best. It's very easy to figure out. And if we're not going to figure it out, let's not talk about it, because it's such an exciting weight. Who's the best? Don't know. They're all excellent. I thought it was cool to see Josh McCulloch kind of respond to Brandon Spain's fight. I like that. I like that type of media, and I really liked what he had to say. Just in terms of, it was an interesting take. Maybe Brandon Spain will respond. I don't know, but I'm interested following it a lot. The way these guys are kind of building a rivalry, but it amounts to nothing if there's not some tangible action to get them to fight each other. So hopefully Josh and Ibi gets back on the books, because that's one that's planned. Hopefully we can get Brandon Spain actually in that picture. I don't even really feel like there's too much discussion there, because I like them all. Was training with Brandon a little bit early in the year. Really fun style to watch. Matches up really well with all of them. Some really good stylistic clashes within the weight class. I'm just not sure what this is going to look like next. Honestly, I'd really like to see Brandon Spain fight James Kostick. I think that would be super fun. I think style-wise, that's a really good fight. If Josh and Ibi are going to fight each other, maybe we could do that. I think that would be super cool. Like, there's a lot of really good options for Brandon. I'd just like to see a bit more of a focus on domestic fights, because they're there to be made, and international fights are awesome, but we can really rally crowd support if we're getting the local favourites fighting each other. So that's kind of the main stories, a few things I thought were worth talking about. Awesome show, great action, and as always, some fun sporting drama coming out of it. So that's Muay Thai League. You got any thoughts you want to discuss and accuse me of being a hater or whatever, just please, my DMs are always open. Khunsueklek is back. I was really, really excited to tune in to RWS Saturday night. I had to think about going over to Bangkok to watch it. I think this is one that was kind of like, I felt quite invested in, because I was so lucky and got to go to Japan for the first one. I think watching this on TV, I was probably the most, I had a bit of stadium FOMO. Like, that place was so packed and just so passionate. I love the way that they brought this rematch back to Thailand. Like, there's just so much passion and so much kind of national pride for this one. And look, there's not even too much to say about the performance. Khunsueklek, Ryuki Matsuda. If there's any award for upset of the year, it's got to go to Ryuki Matsuda for that first fight, a guy who's only had 12 professional bouts, taking on a guy on a 41-fight win streak, two real young superstars, 18 and 19 years of age. The performance by Khunsueklek over 5 rounds in the rematch actually just adds weight to what an incredible upset the first fight was, because this was an absolute shutout performance, a 50-45 by Khunsueklek. For me, if I actually probably didn't do any preview for the first one, but in some of the stuff I said on commentary for the first fight, for example, it's probably the fight I expected to see the first time around, like just that shutdown kick performance. I loved what Khunsueklek was doing, his control of that right kick, where he would change the aim on it, just the way that Ryuki was attempting to, first of all, struggling to get close to land those punches, just running into that whipping right kick over and over again. Then if he attempted to catch, Khunsueklek doing such a good job of kind of like turning that over, just bending the leg, turning the hip over just to use it as a shield between himself and Ryuki's counter offense. Some ridiculous shows of dexterity. There's that slowed down one where Khunsueklek goes to throw the high kick and kind of just like sort of mistimes it, so just keeps it chambered and then flicks it out at the last second. Just, some deceptive kicking work, some really fun stuff by Khunsueklek, and an absolute shutout performance. So you kind of start to see, I thought, some frustration from Ryuki and just his inability to really even touch Khunsueklek. So that fight had super fight status. So Khunsueklek gets the 500,000 baht bonus and regains his Rajadamnern title. I think this is one really puts Khunsueklek back on track. A lot of people were talking about him as this era's Sanchai, and that's something I think he really deserves. He's brilliant to watch. I think just slipped up the first time out. Maybe they'll fight a third time. It probably makes sense. They're 1 win apiece now. I'd imagine Ryuki will kind of go back and have some fights in between, but incredible fight, incredible just level of domination in a way that if you hadn't seen the first fight and I told you Ryuki knocked him out before, you wouldn't believe me. Just absolutely incredible to watch. Really, just I'm so high on Khunsueklek and excited for his future. I think this was brilliant to watch, and just absolutely unbelievable. So simple in his offense, but just it's almost like he has such a unique way of kicking, a very using simple weapons in a really advanced way. He's so interesting to watch, and at 18 or 19, however old he is, probably years away from his prime too. So Khunsueklek definitely one to watch. Have to feel he's the next global Muay Thai superstar for this era. So it was really, really, really exciting. If you haven't caught it, it's probably on YouTube by now. I'll try to drop it in the show notes. A really important rematch from Bangkok on Saturday, and an absolute masterclass from Khunsueklek. History was made on Sunday at Channel 7 Stadium. Not only was the first ever non-Thai born Channel 7 Stadium champion crowned, I believe also for the first time 2 foreigners fought each other at Channel 7 Stadium. So that's a big deal on 2 counts, and raises some really interesting question about the current state of Thailand Muay Thai. I've seen and taken part in a number of discussions about this. What was so interesting about 2 foreigners fighting each other in a stadium that has historically been so exclusive to even give foreigners the chance to compete there was the way that it was received by the Thai crowd. This was not considered some crazy anomaly. It was 2 deserving contenders for the title and a really exciting match. I've seen a lot, I was really lucky. I've seen both of these guys fight live. I've seen Alec fight live at Channel 7. So Alex Singh Ma Win and Petsam Pet Muay Thai, both French, which if 2 non-Thai nations are going to fight for the Channel 7 title, it's got to be France, doesn't it? Just an absolutely beautiful performance by Alec. He's such a strong fighter, very young, still teenage, real stopping power, a very strong ring presence. They share some stylistic similarities, honestly, Petsam and Alex, so that was why it was such an interesting style match, and just an absolutely class performance by Alex Singh Ma Win to take it. I've seen a lot of discussion coming out of this fight as to what it means for the position of foreigners in Thailand Muay Thai. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that I think this is interesting, and it's a really positive mark of how well foreigners are doing, even in the Bangkok scene at the moment, because this isn't the same as a foreign fighter, knocking a established Thai's head off in 4-ounce gloves. This is doing it the Thai way and building up to a championship opportunity. And in that sense, it's something we've not really seen before. I do think, though, that it's worth noting these guys are very young and have more or less come up like Thais, have been making their way through the Thailand scene since they were kids, basically fighting the way Thais do. And I think that was kind of a part of why it was so well accepted for them to be contenders for Channel 7 titles. They've really done it the Thailand way, earned the respect of all of the Thai people. Both speak Thai, I believe. Petsam, I think, is half Thai. Yeah, so they're like quite a unique example of foreigners within Thailand. They almost have kind of like come and done it. Kind of have come up through their careers like Thais, which is different to most foreigners, but I do think for foreign athletes, it's a really exciting time. I think the other sort of point that I wanted to touch upon is something I've had a few conversations about recently, is this might be, in this entertainment Muay Thai era, to see two foreigners that are so young really gunning for Thailand's stadium glory. It's a pretty interesting picture of where foreigners are at right now. And something that I'm having more and more conversations about is, while the opportunities continue to be for foreigners to take on the entertainment format and go the 3 rounds and fight on shows that have bigger purses, I'm hearing more and more fighters wanting to push away from that and go the Thai way. They want to do the stadium thing. They want to fight 5 rounds. They want to do what they kind of came up watching. So as much as the opportunities that continue to be presented to foreigners are in this entertainment format, and it's what foreigners have grabbed with both hands the last few years, as that, this entertainment Muay Thai era continues to grow, there is a really emerging presence of foreigners really choosing to step away from that and go the 5-round way. So I'm quite interested. I think the One Championship, RWS, etc., 3-round foreigner-friendly format, I think has introduced so many people to the idea. I think foreigners succeeding there and the opportunities now, it is easier than ever for foreign fighters to fight at these iconic venues like Rajadamnern. I think it's introduced so many people to Muay Thai. When you're introduced to it, of course, you'll likely spend time in Thailand or really go and study the greats. There is more and more appreciation for the classic style, I suppose, golden age style of Muay Thai, that foreigners are wanting to step away from, I suppose, the environment that was created for them. I don't know if you would say realistically that, this is what took place at Channel 7. These guys that fought for the title are very young, but I do think this is kind of the next shift in foreign, non-Thai perception of Muay Thai. Is you're seeing a lot of people with a preference to hold off on the entertainment shows, even if that is where the money is, which has been the majority of the allure, in favour of 5-round shows. So maybe you're going to start to see more doors open, and maybe in kind of a strange roundabout way, this entertainment era of Muay Thai might have been an important driver of preserving and reinvigorating classic style 5-round Muay Thai. So I think it's very interesting times for foreigners in Thailand. There's so many of them. There's such a growing number of sort of visa options. Thailand's really investing in making long-term stays viable for foreigners. And the feeling is that that's all to kind of push for these 3-round shows. But I don't know that that's really the case. I think foreigners are really adopting a classic style of Muay Thai and maybe even taking it upon themselves to want to preserve that more than is happening within Thailand right now from a promotional standpoint. So, maybe as someone who loves 5-round Muay Thai, maybe that's me being over-optimistic, but I think that's a really interesting discussion point here. I think we are kind of working our way back to classic 5-round Muay Thai off the back of this 3-round era, and that doesn't mean either one of them can't survive. I just think, entertainment Muay Thai, we might look back on this in 10 years and look at this era as something that served as a vehicle to bring us back to Muay Thai of old. What has been will come again, and that might be where we land. So I think it's a really exciting time for foreigners within Thailand Muay Thai. And I don't think that's all about 3-round stuff. I think, there's more opportunity to kind of do things the classic way than we often give credit to sometimes. Before we get out of here for this week, round number 5, let's take a look at the fights we have on deck for Friday night at Lumpinee Stadium One Championship. So this is a stacked card, and we talked the other week about how One are going to send events back to Impact Arena in Nonthaburi to kind of separate out the major events from the regular Friday night shows. This is definitely one of those major events that I think will get the kind of bigger stadium treatment in the future. I'm just going to breeze through what's coming up right now and just encourage you to watch it. I kind of like to talk about things after they happen, so we'll dive into it in detail next week, but this is such a good card. I couldn't even give mention to every fight that's on there. There's so many good ones, but we'll work down from the top. Headlined by Superbon versus Jo Nattuwat in a full Thai rules fight. I had to double check because Superbon has made so much of his career in kickboxing, especially in China recently. He's coming off another fight. I don't even know how many times I fought with Marat Grigorian. Jo Nattuwat also dipped his toes into kickboxing to take on Dawan Chai recently. They fought both rule sets. The fight full Thai rules, which is really exciting. That's always my preference, as most people probably know. Interesting one. Both, of course, fought Dawan Chai very recently. Jo Nattuwat is coming off 2 fights with Dawan Chai. Stepped in on late notice the first time, had a really good performance, was given a rematch under full Thai rules. Another one, people were there's a lot of talk about that decision, another really close one. So Superbon also, of course, fought Dawan Chai in a brilliant fight not too long ago, so would have to feel this is aiming to set up the winner for a rematch with Dawan Chai, probably in America with the direction that One Championship's going. Love the fight. I think Jo Nattuwat is sort of in the midst of a real career resurgence. He spent a lot of time living and training in the United States. He was fighting a lion fight, fighting at a high level, but probably not sort of a global level until coming to One Championship. He's since relocated or temporarily relocated to train for this fight at a Fairtech. So, of course, is maybe kind of going back to days of old and really taking the full-time approach, not the fighter/trainer role. Superbon has really been the man at this weight. His fight with Dawan Chai was a very kind of important sort of super fight level. He came up short in that one, but I don't think there was enough in it to say it's not worth doing again, but has a tough ask against Jo Nattuwat, who's really proven his mettle, that he's still in it, that he can hang at this level with the close fights against Dawan Chai. So would definitely sort of be playing spoiler if he was to beat Superbon here. Of course, Superbon set the world on fire when he ended the win streak of Giorgio Petrosian by head kick KO. Can he do the same against Jo Nattuwat? Remains to be seen, but yeah, an awesome match. Should be a big kicking battle. The little gloves will make it very interesting, so really looking forward to that. Nong O versus Kamran Nabati, the Russian fighter who's had a good run in One Championship. Currently up training with Leo at Phuket Fight Club, just up the road from me. This is a fight that when it was initially announced, my first thought is, I don't know if I love this for Nong O at this stage in his career. A big knockout fighter in Nabati in the little gloves. This is Nong O, who got back on track against Kulab Dam, but had a couple of tough ones against Haggerty and Nico Correo back-to-back. I definitely think Nong O does still have the IQ and the mettle to get this one against the undefeated Russian. However, it relies on him staying perfect the whole time, because in those little gloves, Nabati has proven to be very, very dangerous. It's probably, I don't think the game plan from Nabati is going to be to play the game with Nong O. He's going to be looking for the KO. So this will be a good measure of where Nong O's at this stage in his career. Is he going to make another run for the top towards the title? But also, Nabati would come out of this, I think, 22-0. It would be a huge win and really kind of push him to the top of those featherweights. So an exciting one, maybe a high-risk one for Nong O. Are we going to see the wizard, the technician Nong O of old, or the emergence of another star in those 4-ounce gloves? Nabil fighting again versus Solin U. Nabil, can you get anywhere near him? Had that fight against Superbon that kind of showed, kind of stopped him in his tracks a little bit and sent him back to rebuild, but he's been on a good run since then, recently beat Kulab Dam. Settling into his frame, he's such a young guy, getting stronger every fight. an interesting test against kind of like an all-action forward fighter. I think it's really just going to be, can Solin U cover the distance, get to the range and get close enough to do the work that he likes to do against Nabil. And Nabil is becoming, he was always a challenge, just so freakishly tall for the weight, but he's really finding his power as he gets a little bit older and getting stronger. I think, interesting match, and another one that if Nabil continues to rack up wins, you could end up back fighting at that Superbon level, that kind of top echelon before too long. Shadow Singha Mawin versus Mohamed Siasarani from Venom Training Camp. This is guaranteed to be a fun one. Mohamed Siasarani recently won the WBC international title, so that was a return to the 10-ounce gloves for him. But he's proven to be an absolute wrecking machine in those 4-ounce gloves. I think he's one of these fighters that's just absolutely designed for the 4-ounce gloves and the rule set. And Shadow Singha Mawin is such a good matchup, very much a forward stylist, fighting a little bit heavier than he has in the past recently. Love this one. It's just guaranteed action. Really looking forward to seeing how it pans out. How much the 4-ounce gloves on Mo Siasarani proved to be an equaliser against someone of Shadow Singha Mawin's level. Great fight. Not one I really would have thought to make, but an excellent matchup. And also really looking forward to Superbon versus Kulabdam. Kulabdam's been fighting kind of on the bigger one shows recently and has sort of been knocked down a little bit by a couple of losses, whereas Superbon has been making his way up the one Lumpinee ladder, kind of edging towards that sort of main one roster status. So I can kind of see what they're doing with the matchup here. One gets to stay at this level. So yeah, really keen, but also just a really fun stylistic matchup, 2 aggressive punches. And this is a match that tends to kind of favour Kulabdam, like someone that's really going to play his game with him. So really looking forward to that. That's a series of fun fights, all kind of the perfect fights to just chuck the little gloves on as well. So looking forward to that, but we'll talk about it in detail next week. That's all from me for another week. I have another episode. I've got a really fun interview episode that will come out in the next couple of days too. I filmed that first, but I think these results are getting a little bit old, so I wanted to get this one uploaded first. I sat down and had a chat with my good mate, Sammy Cass. He and I have some really big plans to, I can't even tell you too much, but we've got some really cool plans, all centered around kind of producing this podcast and making and building it up a level. So heaps of exciting stuff coming up. You, of course, want to be involved. So as we said at the beginning, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you like what I do, tell a friend. We need more Muay Thai media. If there's anything you want to chat about, shoot me a message. A couple of hot takes in some of the earlier rounds today would love to discuss. But for now, I will get out of here and talk to you soon.